Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. And this watch is the Laurent Ferrier Square Micro Rotor, originally the Galet Square Micro Rotor. It is as fine as ever and resplendent in a series of earth tones, worthy of the 70s, but also refined enough to be worthy of the Laurent Ferrier name. The 70s was the era of brown shades, and this watch has several of them in a 41mm case design that harks back to a much earlier era than the 1970s. It's 48.2 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and 11.4 millimeters thick with a cushion profile that flows easily underneath the dress cuff. It's 20 millimeters in between the lugs. And you could almost hear Ricardo Montalban reminding you of the Chrysler Cordoba's rich Corinthian leather. That car, too, featured earth tones and supple leather against the skin. This watch has on my 16-centimeter circumference wrist. It wears beautifully down the barrel. The lugs are far inboard of the edge of my wrist over the top, which exaggerates the width of the watch. They are still inboard, and in profile, you can see how it would flow underneath a tight dress cuff or sleeve. The strap included the rich leather of which I spoke, large rectangular scale, symmetrical scale alligator leather, and it's actually a light brown hue here, almost like dilute coffee or coffee with a little bit of milk added, a latte. You can see a contrasting white stitch, but what stands out to me is that these are large, symmetrical rectangular scales. That is the best cut of the alligator, and you can see in profile we have a folded edge, which is an unusual treatment as we generally see cut edges. I actually prefer folded. They age better. On the back we have Alcantara to remind you that Laurent Ferrier, back in the 1970s, appropriately enough, was an accomplished race car driver, and Alcantara is a super premium synthetic suede that you'll find often in the headliner of really expensive cars, but also on the touch points of race cars and high-performance road-going sports cars. Think seat inserts, steering wheels, and shift knobs. So we've got that lovely supple Alcantara, which, though a synthetic suede leather, is much more expensive than real suede leather. Rose gold, 18 karat, and a buckle with a wonderful sinuous curvaceous profile. The case here with little pastille style lugs that have a slight undertuck. You can see the case is fluid with a complex compound curvature to it, almost a little bit of an air of what a Panerai Rajamir might be if it went to college. Here we have a little bit of a countersink to an unbranded onion-style crown, a nod to the types of school watches Laurent Ferrier would have made in his youth, as well as the vintage pieces that he restored, unbranded crowns being very traditional, and the onion profile likewise. Now, the dial is conventionally round, though the case is shaped, but we have this lovely vertical satination, so you can see it is a metallic brown with a little bit of undertone of bronze. Vertical brushing, we have varnished white assegai or spear-shaped hands, dart-style applique indices. You can see there's a little bit of a dimple-style minute track outboard, and then a sunken semi-crosshair small second with concentric pattern and a counterweighted lancet-style seconds hand. On the reverse, well, there's nothing vintage about this. This is a very forward-looking movement with one exception. The double direct impulse escapement system here executed with nickel phosphorus Liga-formed wheels and a DRIE etched blocking silicon lever. This is inspired by Breguet's early 19th century natural escapement. Eliminating the Swiss lever, it improves power reserve, chronometry, and reduces maintenance requirements, as each wheel, there are actually two of them here, has little crenellations on it. Those crenellations impulse the balance directly without a lever in one of its two directions of travel. It beats away at 3 hertz, and all adjustments in 6 positions, not the chronometer standard of 5, but 6, one more. All the adjustments done using the variable inertia screws on the balance. Free-sprung and with an overcoil, you can see that the hairspring doubles back over itself to center its mass to enable concentric breathing in every position. All this under a traditional snap case, back 30 meters water resistant. Here you can see we have a micro ratchet system and a jeweled staff for the 22 karat lathe cut winding mass. This is the most silent and the smoothest winding system I've ever encountered, and because of the double direct impulse system, a single relatively small barrel is able to achieve 72 hours or 3 days of power reserve. This 35 joule movement is large and properly sized for the caseback developed by Ferrier, but also Barbacini and Navas. They're the BN of the FBN. La Fabrique du Temps Louis Vuitton, that is the company that helped with the computer design and rough parts fabrication of this movement. Ferrier finishes them, assembles them, and regulates them in-house. But that is a power trio right there, and you can see the finish second to none. We have true abrasive wheel stripes perfectly aligned across bridges. We have bevels that are a mile wide, both on the rhodium-plated brass bridges and then the steel bridge for the winding rotor, as well as the half bridge or balance cock. You can also see we have black polish on the disengagement system, so you can manually wind the barrel, and then it disengages to allow the automatic to wind when that is engaged. We've also got black polish, mostly on steel parts, as you can see. So all the screw heads, the disengagement rocker, the balance cock, and then the bridge for the rotor itself. Now, their interior angles, you can see a skeletonized and quadruply interior beveled balance cock. That is supremely impressive to have 4 bevels that sharp inside such a constrained component and a tight space, as well as one made of a very hard, difficult to finish material like steel. You also have 1, 2, 3, and 4 more of those sharp inward creases where bevels meet, and those are difficult to draw out. You'll also note that the bevels themselves are exceptionally broad and rounded. Hand-laid bevels can be straight or rounded, but I generally find that the rounded type, even on hand-finished watches, less common and harder to execute. You'll also note a very fine, super precise overlapping engine-turned perlage. That sort of small perlage, so perfectly located in overlap and concentric strokes, very difficult to do. And then all screw heads, black polished, but also with their slots and circumference chamfered. And there's even a little bit of internal beveling inside the wheels, which is very difficult to achieve. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.